I'm Jonathan Curry. I'm the practice director from Pivotree. I've been a consultant in the e-commerce data management space for 20 years or so. I'm here with Reed. So, Reed, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So, Reed Garrett, I'm the Vice President of Merchandising and Product Management at Truckpro. Do you want me to go ahead and go into our kind of background, or do you want to go? Do you have other things you want to cover first?
Yeah, so go ahead and tell us a little bit about Truckpro. Some of us might be familiar with it, and some folks might not be. So yeah, go ahead and tell us.
The reason I was doing that is we had talked about, you know, with people being a little bit asleep, do we want to start out with a good dad joke to wake everybody up? It was hard to compete with some of the puns earlier, so we were kind of debating if we could even match up. You want to go with yours? You spend some time on it.
Sure. So I'm afraid for the calendar, its days are numbered.
Ooh. Does anyone know why horses never get a divorce? They have stable relationships. Thank you. That was good.
We're here all night.
Right, yeah.
We're here all night. We got happy hour after.
More to come at happy hour after a drink or two. So,
yeah.
Obviously, that's not the reason you came to listen to us today, because we're probably not that funny. But I do think we've got a good story for you at Truckpro. I think we're in a very unique position because when I look across the room, I've seen a lot of maturity in this space. I remember about 2 years ago, you'll hear our story in a minute, but sitting there going, I don't think we can get there. And I would say we're not there, but as potential customers in the room, I feel where you are today, and I'm hoping that this will be a beneficial time for you. So like I said, my name's Reed Garrett. I'm the Vice President of Merchandising and Product Management at Truckpro, and that has a lot of different, that team has a lot of different responsibilities at Truckpro. We are your traditional supply chain team, think procurement, inventory, that kind of thing, but also category management and merchandising. And then there's a third pillar that's data and analytics. So if you think about those three pillars, what's core to all that is master data management. I mean, if you've got dirty data, it impacts all three of those pillars. And the towel. So and a little bit about Truckpro. We're about 65 years old. We are heavy-duty aftermarket distributors. So we heard from AutoZone earlier. We're a smaller version of a similar business model for 18-wheelers and mining equipment and that kind of stuff. I think the thing that makes our industry a little unique is we're probably about 15 years behind the light-duty and automotive market. You know, you're hearing about some of the data challenges there. I'd say in our industry, it's tough to find. We know that data is always a challenge, but we really do have a much greater lack of data. Our supplier base, unless they're dealing with the automotive market, is a lot less mature. So only about maybe 10% of business is done digitally, and that is expected to grow exponentially over the next, they call it the medium term. But so if you're thinking about starting this journey, that's one reason why I say I think we're a pretty good candidate. Just to give you a size of our PIM, we have about 300,000 SKUs roughly in inventory, but over 1 million products managed in PIM. So that gives you kind of a scale of what we're talking about.
Yeah, great. Take us back a little bit to a couple of years ago when you were starting this journey. What kind of brought you to Syndigo?
Yeah. So, you know, I feel like the term's already been used, digital transformation, or I feel like in this room we all have more than one effort to mature our digital capabilities. For Truckpro, we were no different. 2 years ago, we decided to make some big investments into, you know, it sounds funny to say big investments into e-commerce as if that's new, but for our industry, we were trying to, primarily, the big investments were around becoming one of the industry-leading e-commerce platforms. And that was a big deal at the time. So for us, that looked like we wanted to offer our selection of inventory, our suppliers' inventory, and enable a marketplace, all the while having a seamless omni-channel experience. So again, these aren't things you've never heard of before, but I would say are very forward-leaning in our industry. And obviously, that the core to that is a master data management or PIM solution. And I guess you were saying why Syndigo?
Yeah, why Syndigo? I mean, you have a great story to tell, right? So very ambitious goals. You know, like you said, not too dissimilar digital transformation from a lot of folks in the room here. Let's talk a little bit about why you selected Syndigo, and then we can get into sort of more of your story and what's made it successful.
Sure. Obviously, you know, I know these questions before they're coming, and so when I thought through really why were we picking Syndigo, the primary reasons were things that you would think. Like, we knew that Syndigo was mature in the space, not only today, but you heard Simon present the plans for investment in the future. We saw that, and you know, we wanted them to be a leader today, whoever we picked, and a leader tomorrow. Clearly, with the customers in the room that are customers of Syndigo, we wanted scalability, and they had that. And then in our distribution space, we knew that they had industry experience. But I would say on the surface, everyone in here knows to look for that. I think that the one thing that we valued highly was, I think that even the guys from 7-Eleven might have mentioned a little bit of a bumpy road when you went to implement. That is, you know, when you've got a complex business and a complex solution and you're trying to marry them together, you're always going to have bumps. And so as we were picking a partner, we felt comfortable with Syndigo in the way you handle those challenges. You saw the partnership attitude on the stage already. That to me was one of the primary drivers for Syndigo.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And so what brought you to choose Pivotree as your consulting partner? And talk a little bit about our relationship.
Yeah, so similar lines with Pivotree. I would say that I'd go a different direction with that question a little bit. One of the things that, you know, this journey was new to us. It's not like, if you had seen 5 years ago, master data management really wasn't a topic of conversation in a boardroom or in a supplier meeting or something like that. That wasn't. You fast forward to, I never would have dreamed how much time we spend talking about it today. So 5 years ago, we didn't have experience. We didn't even really have good line of sight of what challenges we were about to face. And so partnering with someone who this isn't their first journey or first digital transformation or data journey, we could learn from their experience, and they could help us avoid traps before we hit them, but they also knew how to tailor the solution to best fit our needs, primarily because they've seen it, and that was important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that was mentioned earlier today was it's not just about configuring the software. That's not exclusively what makes a project successful. So talk a little bit about some of the other things that Truckpro has done in addition to implementing the solution that's made it successful.
So you're thinking through, like, what did it enable, the business outcomes that...
Yeah, like you've put in place some data governance, you put in place some integration,
sure.
Some of those types of things.
So obviously, when I talked about some of the things we were trying to accomplish with e-commerce, that all of that capability doesn't lie within a PIM. We were trying to do vendor drop shipping. We were trying to enable marketplace. What it forced us to do was really, and you heard this, I think, in some of the other presentations, we really had to change our system architecture, and you know, we've got a middle layer now that makes it so that changes in PIM have to be you know, more real time down to downstream systems, because PIM is controlling how an order is fulfilled, or the data needed to transact sometimes. So, you know, that by going after those business objectives, it definitely forced us to change a lot more, you know, around our architecture and governance.
Sure, sure. What were some of the challenges that you had, and how did you overcome them?
Broadly, I would say change management, but maybe not in the ways that you think. Not so much change in the day-to-day life of an individual person putting in information into our system. That was there, but I would call that more ancillary than, for us it was really a change in, excuse me, the headcount needed, but also in I'd call it executive headspace, because as I mentioned a minute ago, 5 years ago, you wouldn't have heard at behind closed doors in the boardrooms us talking about partnering with specific people because of their data maturity, and that's changed a lot. When I meet with suppliers and we are going over our business performance as a partnership, data is a big piece of that. That's now a KPI that we measure to. So I think that was probably one of the biggest changes and hurdles, because that was a new way of talking for us.
Right, just kind of learning that new vocabulary, making sure everyone understood what was going on, and understanding really the value, right?
Mm-hmm. I'd also say that we have the same, or I'd say I think more than average challenges with data availability, and we had a little bit of trouble with everyone agrees at the highest level. They'll tell you data is important, right? Well, but how important? How much resources do we need? Do I need to invest more in a partnership or an FTE? Do I need to change my system architecture in this one area or not? Those are all, I would say those were all spots that we kind of helped work through together as we went through the journey.
Excellent. And you have a really great story to tell around, the growth of your business. Can you tell everyone a little bit about how Truckpro has grown, especially in the digital side?
Yeah, that's an exciting thing to report on. So, back when we started in 2021, we were trying to enable a more robust e-commerce platform. Today, roughly 25% of our sales is across the platform. And for us, that was a bigger leap than we honestly expected at this point in our journey. And with that comes, you guys know the benefits that come. There's a lot more stickiness, and we're serving the customers in a more efficient and, around the clock. We get the products to them the way they want to get it, when they want it. So it's been a big deal. Our site, we have about 1 million products in our PIM, but through enabling the platform, we actually have about 4.5 million SKUs on our site, which is about 3 to 4x what kind of the next second place site would have. So to some of the guys in the room, that's probably peanuts, but for us, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's so amazing. That's so amazing. So the next thing I want to talk about is, what are some of the key takeaways you would have for folks that are looking to start that journey or go through their next initiative here?
I'm glad you asked. They're right up there. One of the things that we learned, and I would say we didn't necessarily, these aren't things we did all right. These are things that, looking back, that I would tell me 2 years ago. One is we knew we had a data problem before we ever launched a PIM solution. You need to start preparing your supplier partners or whoever's helping you enrich that data now, because there's no need to wait on the platform. It's going to be a mountain of work. So I'd say start early on that. And don't view, and I don't think that maybe us in this room would do this, but in our organization, we had to change. Implementing a PIM was not a one-time solution. We were actually building more of a cataloging discipline. It's not, yes, maybe a go live for the software is a project, but there's a discipline and a maturity needed that I'd say in our business, we didn't articulate it that way.
Yeah, it's a new capability. You can do more things. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then obviously we talked a lot about the system architecture. you need to know that on the front end, because that drives a lot. PIM's going to feed external systems. Obviously, the IT guys in the room know that, but there's really big decisions that have to be made there. And then executive sponsorship. If it's an IT-driven initiative, or it's the master data team, or whatever, if you don't have uniformed, everyone marching to the same tune, then you're going to have a problem. Fortunately for us, that was a win in our book, because we were enabling another sales channel. We had the business goal to support the implementation, but without that, we would have had a problem, because then it turns into a lot more of resources start competing against each other instead of marching the same direction.
Right. You said there was also in order to make that effective, you had to learn how to communicate a certain language, right? And that was a big part of it.
I'd say we're still learning to communicate. Even with any new discipline, you both think the other one's going to do it, or you both try to do it at the same time, or especially when we think about, you're passing data to downstream systems. Well, who owns, did that system receive it or not? But honestly, most of the working team that implemented still works together, so it's kind of a small family, if you will.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Thanks so much for sharing. Tell us what's next for Truckpro. Looking forward, what's your roadmap look like?
I'm glad you asked. So for us, a lot of the content that we have in our PIM today was either made by us, or we manually took spreadsheets we received from vendors and jammed it in there. That's a way to start. That's a good way to get going. But obviously, the suppliers of the products, the manufacturers, know their products much better than us. And we need to be able to enable them to interact with our PIM. So the vendor portal is definitely going to be a very soon next step for us. And then after the vendors, if the information just doesn't exist from a vendor, then where do you go get it? Well, we're looking for any additional either syndication services, or then we're trying to bring in as many avenues or as many inputs into our PIM as we can. I would say, I didn't put it on the slide because I didn't know exactly where the slides would go. But one of the things that this really opened up for us was so today we were enabling an e-commerce platform for a customer to be able to decide what part to go purchase. We were planning to build that into our point of sale. So now we're using that same data to empower our counter team. And think about just turning the screen around. It looks just like the website. Obviously, there's additional capabilities, but and if you think about changing the DNA of a company, we've now changed the customer-facing piece, and now the ERP, that's a UI on top of the ERP it's a seamless experience. When they turn that screen around, it's the same as if it looks like they're on the website. So a lot of neat things coming up.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks again, Reed. I'm going to move on to the Q&A. Before we get into Benny, or would you guys like to hear more dad jokes?
Or do you have a better one?
Okay.
My feelings are hurt too.
Well, thanks again, everyone.